Good day, runners. This is Coach Peter Pym with my audio for the week of May 6th. And yes, the morning after the Leafs lost another playoff match against the Boston Bruins, who won in a nail-biting, and I mean serious nail-biting, overtime period. It was a great game, though. Now, as much as I'm a Leafs hockey fan, there's a part of me clapping for the Bostonians, having fun cheering for the lads. And maybe it's partially due to what happened at this year's Boston Marathon, which brought so much sadness. But you know, thinking so much about the Boston tragedy also brought back, for me, a flood of great memories, and I feel like sharing them with you. Although I had never considered myself a marathoner, I did run the 1977 Boston for fun, and it was my first marathon. I think I was 4 years old at the time. Back in those days, you didn't have to qualify, and I think they were particularly welcoming to Canadians. Our runners had a long history of participation and success. I mean, Gerard Cody of Quebec won it 5 times between the years of 1936 and 1948. Pretty impressive. I hadn't really trained for it, and in fact, I think I may have only done one long run, about 24 to 28 kilometers, or as we called it back then, about 15 miles. But the first athlete I ever trained, Wayne Yetman, who had been at the Olympics in 1976, he had entered, and I decided to go down to cheer him on and join in the fun. So we're there, and the night before we go out to see the Rocky movie, the first one, which really pumped us up big time. Yo, Adrian! So the next morning I got up real early and I left the hotel for a walk, and as I'm walking out the front door, in comes Canadian Jerome Drayton, who had already been out for a shakeout walk. That was the first of 2 times I was behind Drayton that day. So we bus out to Hopkinton, and I line up with about 3,000 runners, which at the time struck me as a multitude. I mean, 5 years earlier, when I had run my longest race, the Around the Bay, I think there were about 85 finishers, and all male. Wow, has that changed? Once the race was underway, the next striking memory was the crowd support like I had never experienced. And in those days, the spectators that lined the whole route at times were often right on the road. It seemed like you were running through a gauntlet, but a really friendly and supportive gauntlet. In fact, one of the cool things they did that year was one of the city newspapers, and it may have been the Boston Globe, published names and bib numbers and hometowns of the entire field of runners the day before. So along the way, you could hear folks cheering on runners by their name. Unbelievable. Around Wellesley College, where the girls were out in full dress, well, some of them were fully dressed, I'm running along and the cheering and applause went up about several decibels as I approached, and I'm narcissistically thinking, it's for me, since they have ID'd me as a Canadian runner. Not even close, because a few seconds later, a topless male runner built like the Greek god Adonis majestically strode past me like I was standing still. And get this, he was drinking a bottle of beer as he rolled along. I am not kidding. Anyway, by this time the temperature had really climbed and was close to the 80s, and so it became a meltdown for many runners, including Bill Rogers, who had won the race in 1975. I like to say I beat Bill Rogers that day, but so did every other finisher since he dropped out. But hey, a scalp's a scalp. It was a great day for Canadians, though. Jerome Drayton won in 2:14:46. I remember that time. And co-Power Bar founder Brian Maxwell was third in 2:17 and change. And on the women's side, Gail Olenek of Canada finished fourth in 2:56 and change. I managed to complete the distance, but I was so terribly ill-prepared to run that far, never mind over that very tough Boston route. I was going downstairs backwards for over a week. But the most cherished memory I have of the event was the last 600 meters, where it seemed like people were literally growing out of the sides of the buildings up until the finish line. It was incredible. The crowd support gave me goosebumps, and that's the only time I've ever experienced that well running in a race. And to think that this year thousands of runners had to be stopped about 700 meters from the line, it's such a shame that they missed the finishing experience of Boston. But I'm betting the majority of them will be returning in the next year or so. No question about it, Boston deserves to be proud of annually staging one of the greatest running traditions. Until next time.